everybody. Hi, I'm Dave Lucas, and we'd like to welcome you to this very special All Points. We're going to take a trip into West Virginia. We're in Ironton, Ohio right now. We're going to take a trip into West Virginia to see some ancient petroglyphs. We think they're from the ancient culture, but we're going to let our good friend and guide, Steve Schaefer, who is a great historian, a local historian here, is going to take us down. He's done all the research on this and he'll take us down there and show us. So let's go in and see Steve, and we'll go down and see these petroglyphs. Come on in. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Dave. Come on in.
Yeah, thank you. Good
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good to see you. Always glad to see
Appreciate so
you.
much you taking the time to do this.
Well, I know you've been interested in Native American subjects for a long time, so.
Very much so.
Yeah, I'm glad we can go down there today and look at these prehistoric petroglyphs.
Now, where are we going exactly? Are we going to the Wyandotte River, you said?
On the Wyandotte River, close to a little village named Salt Rock.
Salt Rock, West Virginia.
Where there was a prehistoric Indian village and a number of boulders that the Indians left their symbolism on.
So they actually carved on the rocks.
They carved it out on these big sandstone boulders, and fortunately it survived that we can see them today.
Well, that's great. That's great. Now, let me ask you a question. What group would this have been? What tribe or what group of Indians would this have been?
Dave, this is before there was a tribal designation, because we don't really know what these people called themselves.
Oh, I see.
They shared certain cultural traits, and we classify them, or the archaeologists classify them as Fort Ancient.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and they were in the Ohio Valley and say from about 100 AD to maybe about 1600.
Okay.
Okay, and like I say, they're not tribal, but we don't know about their languages so much, but we know that they did share cultural traits. You know, they really need to do the DNA.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? If
Yeah.
they do the DNA someday, that'll tell us a whole lot.
Tell us a whole lot more.
Right.
Well, we're excited. Appreciate you taking the time. And
Well,
so,
I'm glad to do it.
Steve Schaefer?
Let's shut down and go, David.
why don't you take us out here?
Let's
Okay, let's go. Okay, Steve, so we're going to Salt Rock, West Virginia. I don't think I've ever heard of that, but it sounds like there might have been a salt lick there. But how did you first find out about these petroglyphs, and what made you interested in them? I mean, that's always like the first general question. How did this happen?
Dave, when I was about 11 or 12 years old, I was reading a book one day on the Plains Indians, and my dad happened to look over my shoulder. He said, "What are you reading?" I said, "Oh man, it's this Plains Indians, Dad, it's great stuff." And he said, "You know, we had Indians right here in Ohio." I said, "What?" He said, "We sure did." And he knew a couple fellows in our town who had an archaeology club.
Oh, a club.
And it was part of the Archaeological Society of Ohio. It was like a chapter.
Wow, that's cool.
And so we headed over to one of their meetings. They had a meeting once a month. And here were these guys, and most of them were older men. There were a few young guys, but most of them were older men that enjoyed history and archaeology and finding these arrowheads.
Yeah.
And they took me under wing and really were kind to me and wanted me to know about these things and learn about these things. And we would show arrowheads we brought at the meetings, and we'd go on field trips to see, I don't know, like Indian mounds and things like that. And I think it was Dr. Haney, he was a dentist in town. He suggested we go to Salt Rock to see some petroglyphs. Well, nobody knew what petroglyph was back then.
Oh, so that was kind of a learning experience in itself.
Oh, absolutely. It was, he had read a little bit about it, and we all caravanned down there, and here were these rocks right on the side of the Wyandotte River with all these great symbols on them, and we just were in heaven. We thought, man, isn't this a fascinating thing? And we found out there was a village site close by in a big bottom, and back then the property owner would let you go in and walk the plowed field, and we actually found arrowheads that these...
So at this village site, you were able to find artifacts.
Yeah, from these people that had created the symbols.
That's incredible.
So I guess that started my lifelong interest in this.
So you've had this from that time forward. This
Absolutely.
interest in Native American and artifacts, petroglyphs. That's really awesome. Well, all right, we're on our way. Hey everybody, we are, I think, in Salt Rock. Where are we?
Salt Rock, West Virginia. Okay.
And we're on what river?
The Guyandotte.
And we made our way out of Salt Rock a ways. We're not like in the community. But what are we going to see? Is this it?
We're going to see things people today don't even know exist.
They don't even know it's here.
That's exactly right. This is going to be an adventure.
So we're going to have to walk down a steep hill here?
We're going to climb down this hill, and we're going to see some things that have been sitting there for 1,000 years.
You're going to describe for us what they are.
I'll do it.
All right, here we go. We got our walking sticks. We're set. Steve Schaefer's the man. He's going to show me some artifacts from thousands of years ago, and you get to see it too.
This is the book, Ancient Monuments of the Mississippi Valley by Ephraim Squire and Edwin Davis. And it was published mostly about the mounds, but they do include these prehistoric petroglyphs.
So they found these, what year, 1840s, did you say?
1846 they were here. I don't know how they learned of these, but they had an informant that told them these rocks existed. And they traveled up here and made drawings, which later became a part of their book. And they show the full-size human figure.
That's up there.
Okay. He's wearing a hat. These Indians didn't wear headdresses. They actually wore conical hats that resemble almost an oriental hat.
Huh.
And I've seen these in several of their images. The high-status individuals wore a gorget made out of ocean shell, traded from Florida, and it has the weeping eye, or the falcon's eye. It's an inverted V, and I'll show you that in another book. Also on that rock are some turkey tracks. There's a number of cupules.
Now those cupules are what we see a lot of places where there's Native American villages and inhabitants where they just cupped out the rock in several places.
That's exactly right. And there's really no consensus on what they actually did with those. I think they probably, some of them might have been for just a practical purpose, while others were maybe used as a counting thing or just a symbolic thing. So that's the main rock. It has a full-size figure, and I think we measured it one time, and he's over 6 feet tall. And I would say he probably laid on there, and they probably drew his image out and then carved it out. So he would have been telling us that there's a high-status individual here, and this is his mark.
Oh, I see.
On the side of that rock, you want to walk up and look at those two?
Yeah, sure.
Let's walk this way. Best preserved petroglyphs at this site. And it represents obviously a bird. You can see his wings, tail, and the head. And it also, I think this is interesting, it looks like it's wearing something around its neck.
Maybe another Bourget. Like
Maybe, yeah, absolutely.
Could this be an image of that falcon for that falcon dance?
It might be. It could be. You can't interpret or read these things because really the only person knows exactly they made, or who made them, knows what they mean. But the fun part of it is trying to interpret it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and it looks a lot like that falcon that we've seen other images of.
Right. And this one's held up pretty good, Dave, because it's like I say, it's on a vertical surface. The others aren't so much, and it is blocked by the hillside a little bit. But acid rain, this lichen,
it's covered up.
Same thing in cemeteries. It just eats that sandstone
So
up.
it actually is eating the sandstone.
So.
And what was there, according to the book?
Dave, it was a bird. It was also a bird. It was not as finely done.
It looks more like a turkey.
It does look more like a turkey or a goose.
Mm-hmm. And what is this here? Have you seen that before?
This, I think, was just, you see how sharp these are?
Yes.
I think somebody took a chisel and added those later.
Oh, you don't think that's
that wasn't there when I was a boy.
Oh.
Okay?
Yeah,
so vandalism's a thing. Some people want to leave their mark on these, and they really shouldn't. They should leave them alone for others to enjoy.
How do you think they did this? Do you think they did this with a rock and hammerstone, or how do you, because it's rounded It's not sharp like you're saying that one. This is all rounded.
I talked to a rock art expert, Rex Weeks from Arizona, and he actually came here and looked at a lot of these places. And see, I thought the same thing. I thought there would be a hammer and chisel. One rock's, you know, represents one and the other, and they would have chiseled them, but they didn't do that at all because, and he really showed me this. He said, get a hammer and a chisel shaped rock, and I did. He said, about the third time you hit that chisel, you're going to bust the lip, you know, the front of it off.
Yes.
And I did. And about the third time it broke, he said, here's how they did it. And he took the chisel rock and he just started doing this.
Chipping it.
Making his indentations. And then he joined them like this.
Oh,
okay.
That makes sense. It looks like, yeah.
So it's all done with one hand, with one movement, with one tool. Okay.
That's finely done. It's really pretty. Yeah, I think that's a falcon. Let's go look at some more.
Let's go look at the horned serpent.
Yes, that's what I want to see is the horned serpent. So now, Steve, tell me what we got here. This is on this big face of the rock, and this is really a remarkable piece here. What do we got?
Okay, let's call this the second panel. The second panel, Squire and Davis draws it in their book, and they show a deer and 3 or 4 human figures. Well, they didn't have the knowledge of this culture's imagery and symbolism
At the time.
So they just went on what their eyes saw. But instead of a deer, it's a horned serpent. It has horns, and you can see the snake's body this way. And that was a popular symbol for this culture. You see it a lot in their other imagery. And there are 3 figures. There's a figure here with raised arms, a figure here with raised arms, and you'll notice the eyes are the inverted V's.
Yes, those inverted V's again.
Okay, so that tells us who they are and when they were here. They're 4 ancient Mississippian people.
And what does that horned serpent represent? I mean, as far as you know, do you have any idea?
I have no idea. You know, I always thought maybe it represented this river going by with the people alongside of it, but it's whatever you want it to be, Dave.
I see.
Because we don't know. We don't know what it is.
And then this horned serpent shows up in other places?
Yes, it does. Yes,
Are they near rivers?
I can't tell you that. They're on different objects.
I see.
You know, ceremonial objects and things like that. But it's important because we know just who made these carvings.
Right.
And so many places they're just out and we don't know. There's so much symbolism that's repeated, recognizable symbols.
And the village was not too far from here.
No, not at all. Half a mile at the most.
We'll go by there. Well, we'll do a panoramic of where the village, because we know exactly where that village was located, right? That's right. I want to show you that Steve's telling us the truth. This is him, 12 years old, standing right here, almost the same place. We'll get him here in a minute. He can lean over the rock. But there's the man carved on the rock, still right there. I'm sure that, did you outline that day? It looks
somebody
like they're doing
did
some cornstarch
in our party.
Yeah, outlined it all. That's amazing. Same place. Here's some of the other figures as well. Is that this one?
Those 2 fellas are Bob Musklowski, an archaeologist with the Corps of Engineers, and Dewey Sanderson. He was the head of the geology department of Marshall. And you can see they did a dig right here, professional dig, just to see if there was any other trace of any kind of Native American activity. They found a couple beer bottles.
Oh, that's it.
And a piece of chain. Yeah. This was simply a sign, Dave. This wasn't, you know, some connected site or anything like this. This was just
symbolic. That's amazing. We'll get you over here in a second. All right, here's Steve. A few years later, standing in the same place. We had his picture taken. We're doing video though, not a picture. And there's that man there. Wow, that's incredible. That's just incredible. Look, they got a big triangle up there.
There is a triangle there. There's a bird down here, and you can't see it very well anymore. There's a string of dots. But you notice the man, he has the inverted V's.
Yes, that hat, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
see,
the
his
eyes
eyes
too.
V's.
Yeah.
And he's wearing a gorget. He's a high status individual.
Right. Right. Well, Steve, what we've got here, this is that gorget, as you call it. I always pronounce it gorget, but that's probably the French. What do we have here?
Some people call it a masquette. It's a small version of the gorget, and it's the exact same time period, and you can see that inverted eyes.
Weeping eye.
Barely on there. This came from another site, maybe about 75 miles from here. And but they found a beautiful one here, a large one. And obviously the larger was more status.
Sure, yeah, exactly.
Oriented. So yeah. But this gives you an idea that this symbol was just everywhere.
Right.
You know? They call it the weeping eye or the falcon eye.
And that's what we're seeing here, that falcon eye on these drawings.
That's right. And this will date from about 1500 AD.
Wow.
Yeah, before there was any European contact.
That's incredible. Now, Steve, there were more rocks, there were more carvings and drawings. When these men came down and first found these,
That's right, David. 1846, you didn't have the railroad. It didn't come along till maybe 1906 in there. There probably wasn't a road either. There was probably just a bridle path.
Almost like we've got here to follow down here.
So even though we're out in the country, there was a lot of earth moving going on with the advent of the railroad.
Right.
So there are boulders here that have petroglyphs that are covered up, that Squire Davis recorded, but they're no longer visible. There was also a petroglyph downstream, and it was a figure of a woman, and that is a very rare.
I was going to say, that's rare, isn't it?
It is very rare. So that boulder, there's no trace of it, and we're afraid that when they blasted for the railroad, they just took it out.
Yeah.
But these are so culturally important, and they're, you know, as you can see, they're slowly but surely dissolving.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad we were able to make this video, though, so at least we can record what was here if they do finally fade away.
Sure.
And these are thousands of years old already.
Well, they're actually, I would say there's never been a carbon-14 date on this site, but I'd say a good guess would maybe be 1500 AD.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's before the whites. It's what they call the late prehistoric period.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's amazing, fascinating. Just wish we could see that woman, because that's a drawing that...
She might be there buried, but I have a feeling
she's obliterated.
She's obliterated, right. She's probably gravel in the train track rail.
Blasted railroad guy.
Maybe someone, Dave, will be interested in these sometime, and there'll be a real push to preserve these.
That's what we'd need, right, to preserve them. You'd have to get them fixed up so that they would be
You'd have to get them in a climate-controlled environment,
right.
Because no matter if you build a shelter, it doesn't make any difference. The lichen still grows. Mm-hmm. The acid rain still flows,
right.
And that freeze-thaw cycle
repeats
itself.
You're going to show me that village site, right?
I'm going to show you that.
Okay, we're going to go show you the village.
Prominence, we're looking across this hayfield toward the river, and you have to use your imagination here.
Right.
There was an Indian village there, and it wasn't teepees, and there were no horses. It's long before that. It would have been a palisaded village with a wooden wall that went completely around the village with the houses on the interior side.
Oh, I see.
The houses would have been post-construction, probably with mud and daub, and probably had some either bark or some kind of grass for a roof.
Thatch.
And there'd been probably several hundred people lived there.
Right.
You know, and you would have heard dogs barking, you heard kids yelling, and all kinds of activities going on.
You can almost see where they would have chosen what location.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful plain and a river valley.
And we don't know the name of that village, do we?
No, we don't know the name of the people or anything really about them other than the artifacts. There's no written record.
Right, right.